Hey everybody, this is the Sync Eater. It's an analog visual effects processor that deals with composite video. It's got a combination of knobs, switches, buttons, and CV inputs, which make it suitable for both studio and live use, with the goal being to add some lo-fi, glitchy visual effects into a composite video workflow. This started as a personal prototype a number of months ago, and then I ended up spending some time developing it out into the device you see here during the lockdown. My plan was to release this device back in July and offer them as made-to-order commissions, though once things started opening back up and I was back to a hectic work schedule, I just legitimately haven't had time to focus on these builds, so this ended up being put on the back burner. I'm still figuring my plans for this thing out, so if you're interested in potentially acquiring one, stick around till the end of the video or check out gleix.net/synceater, but for now, let's just dive into what this thing does. So the first thing that I'll note is that I'm capturing this in 3 different ways because every setup is different, and glitchy analog gear like this reacts totally different to different gear setups. So I wanted to try and show this with a few different methods. So number one, I've got this going to a CRT television that I'm shooting with a camera. Second is that I've got this going directly into a composite video capture card. And third is I've got this going through a video mixer with a time-based corrector in it, then going through a composite to HDMI converter, and then capturing that as HDMI. So 3 different use cases, and hopefully this will also shed some light on how this will react differently to different setups, because everybody's setup is different, and again, all setups react a little bit differently. And one of the first things you'll note is that dropouts and blue screens are going to be more common with the direct to capture card method, and that's just a quirk of devices like this that screw around with the actual analog video signal. So you know, you're gonna have less signal integrity there. So yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and start moving through this a little bit. All right, so let's quickly go through the device itself. Over here on the right, we have a latching push button for power. We have a 2.1 mil barrel jack for power back here. This thing runs on 9 volts, and this is center positive. We have a composite video output and 2 composite video inputs. So we can easily switch between those composite video inputs with this A/B switch right here. So every primary effect on this panel has an associated symbol, and these switches here are ways of adjusting the behavior and parameters for specific effects. The effects are controlled through knobs, through these pulse buttons down here, and 3 of them are controllable with CV, which also have attenuation knobs. So I wanted to start this by just showing how very simple video signals are affected. So right now I'm just sending this a white circle on a black background. So right here, this is our primary fade in and out. You'll notice our direct to composite capture will have some issues with that blue screen going in and out. And that even without any big adjustments on anything else, we're getting some interesting color shifting. Right around here, we're seeing some of that like edged feedback rotating through red, green, and blue. So this right here is our blur or our luminance shift, and that's also attached to these 4 switches. So this first switch is low, second medium and high, and then a polarity switch, which I'll get into in a little bit. So if I turn that up, if I turn on low, you'll see that our circle, anything bright will shift off to the right a little bit. So here's medium and high. And these are also additive, so we can stack them. And these 6 buttons down here are also ways of pulsing any of these effects. So with blur off, this button will now let us easily pulse that blur on and off. Same with something like our brightness knob over here. So at the very top, this brightness acts a bit like a solar eyes. So these buttons are just adding to these signals. So this will, if the knob is turned down, this will pulse it all the way to the top. So we can easily invert our signal. This is a great way of, you know, if you want to play with things in a live setting. So let me switch our image a little bit. Let's move over here. So here we've just got a black circle on a white background, a neutral gray, and then a white circle on a black background. So up here in our little pyramid of switches, up here at the very top, we have an on and off for our primary modulation, which is this knob over here. And we also have 3 different modes for that modulation. 1 and 3 are fairly similar, but they each combine with 2 in different ways. So let's turn that on, and now we can start getting some more pronounced visual effects. So let's just play around with some of these knobs and see what happens. Let's dial up our blur to medium, and let's try playing with the polarity. And see that with polarity in the positive position, we're able to get a little more play and adjust the spacing between those feedback lines a little bit. And again, playing with our fade here will adjust which luminance levels that those lines are appearing on, whether they're appearing on bright colors or dark colors. And with our sync over here, we can kind of play with the spacing a little bit. So let me switch this to this over here and dial all this other stuff out. Now we can just see how some of these things play with color. So this top knob here is something that I was calling a secondary modulation or color adjustment, just because this tends to adjust colors a little bit, which you can see here. Though one thing to keep in mind is that this thing really is just about experimentation, and very fine adjustments of different knobs will cause everything else to act completely differently. So you may make just a tiny adjustment to one knob and then realize that another knob is now doing something almost completely different. Let's try combining mode 1 and 2 together. Play around just in mode 2. Now, typically, I think my favorite is just leaving it in mode 1, as some of them, as far as synchronization goes, can be a little more finicky. But if you're making very fine adjustments, then you can find some interesting sweet spots. Now let's move over to some faces. So these are just some faces I grabbed off of thispersondoesnotexist.com. These are all AI generated faces, so I'm not using anybody's likeness here. So let's just fade in and out and see what happens here during the in-between phases. So we can get some really interesting looks here. Let's play with CV a little bit here. So I've got a Moog Mother 32 here for some easy stuff. Just make sure that we can see the LFO rate right here. So I'm going to send square wave LFO out here to our fade in and out. So what is our fade in and out doing? Right now it's doing this. So let's leave it at a middle point, and then if I dial up the attenuation, then we can start seeing that we're easily able to flash that specific thing on and off with CV, and we can adjust how much that CV is actually dialing this knob up and down. And when it comes to signals like this in the video space, with NTSC, which is running at 60 Hertz, if we locate multiples of 60 Hertz with our LFO over here, we can create a scan line in the effect that we're sending it to. So right now at 60 Hertz, we've got a little scan line moving up and down. If we go up to around 120, we'll get multiple scan lines. So at every multiple, we're just adding some more scan lines. We can fine tune it for how much it's moving and how much it's affecting the effect. Banker. So how about this one here, the secondary modulation, or color. Let's pipe it into color here. Let's dial up our attenuator. We can flash that color on and off pretty easily. And again, that's going to affect a number of other things here. So if we dial out our fade, horrifying, huh? Let's dial up that speed. You can also experiment without any of these mode switches engaged. It's kind of an interesting way of adding just visual snow and then revealing a face. So, as I mentioned in the intro, this has been on the back burner for a while, and I still have a few things to figure out, but I do want to sell these in some form. Whether that means occasionally opening up commissions when I have more time, or announcing that I have one built which is for sale here and there. Info about whatever I decide on will be at gleix.net/sinkeater when this video is released. There's also an active mailing list where you can sign up to receive any major updates about the Sink Eater on this page. In the future, I might like to release this as a kit of some sort, making the panels and PCBs available in some way, but no guarantees, and that would be a ways off. If this is something you'd be interested in, however, please let me know. Guaranteed interest can help encourage me to develop things like this. I also want to recommend checking out Yovazal's YouTube page, specifically the videos titled 3 Different Ways to Capture Analog Glitch Visuals and What are Time-Based Correctors and When Do You Need Them? There are no right or wrong ways to capture analog glitch visuals, but there are a number of things to keep in mind, and these 2 videos in specific can be super informative. I'd also check out the Tech Tips page on the website for OG Video Bender Tachyons Plus. There's just a wealth of knowledge over there on capturing and just generally working with analog glitch devices, including info on CRT TVs, time-based correctors, video mixers, you name it. No 2 time-based correctors, video mixers, or really 2 gear setups act exactly the same when it comes to this sort of stuff, so experimentation really is key to figuring out what works best for your needs. So feel free to reach out with any questions you have. My inbox is always open. You can find me and my stuff over at gleix.net. I'm also at Gleix on Instagram if you want to keep up with what I'm doing. And thanks for checking this out. I'll catch you here with the next one. Take care, everyone. So right now I'm just sending it a white signal, or a white circle on a backpack. Oh my god.